This podcast is brought to you by PwC.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of our podcast offering insights to family offices. Today we're doing the second of 3 podcasts focusing on the Swiss inheritance tax initiative, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Jürg Niederbacher, who leads our private wealth practice across Switzerland. Jürg, hi.
Hi, Lisa. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you. So we've heard from Dieter on the kind of high level of where things are with the initiative, but can you give us kind of a brief update of where things stand right now?
Yeah, thanks a lot. In March, or the beginning of March, the National Council kind of rejected the initiative and with a high majority. And now also the Commission of Economics and Duties of the Council of State has done the same. So that means as a next one, only the Council of State as such is left to debate on it in June. And now it's expected that we will have a vote by 30th of November, and then we will see what the public means.
And it's really interesting. I mentioned this with Dieter. From the outside looking into Switzerland, there's lots of different stages in the process before we get to the vote. But is it right to say that because the various governmental bodies have already rejected it, that's likely to follow at the ballot box?
Of course, we would say hopefully yes. No, but I think it was always a question, kind of if you go back half a year, how the political process will look like, whether it will be very clear and kind of short and crisp, which it now was. So that now really means all the minority also proposals have been rejected in one day. So there was no huge debate in Parliament, which I think should really or hopefully give the sign that we can also expect this to go ahead like this, and that at the end the public will also kind of follow the political parties, where we have a very clear kind of a very clear majority who supports rejecting the vote.
Yeah. And so as a reminder, the initiative would bring in 50% federal inheritance tax with a 50 million exemption. So anything above 50 million would then be subject to this tax. So that affects the business owning families who have wealth in their business. And so for them, I guess they can't risk that it's a no, because if it is, that really impacts them and they don't have liquidity to pay a future tax event. So what are you seeing your clients doing?
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned is one of the biggest issues. I mean, liquid wealth is one thing. There you can say, well, it's just a kind of a question whether you want to pay or should pay half of it. If you have a business, there's no way you can deal with it apart from selling kind of half of your business or handing over half of your business to the state. And so therefore, families that are affected in that way, I mean, they are definitely thinking about also leaving Switzerland or are much closer to kind of how high the likelihood now is that it will kind of be accepted or rejected, because they could simply not live with a yes.
Yeah, and it's quite dramatic, isn't it, to actually leave? But like you say, you can't risk it. And which countries are you seeing as popular locations when discussing and considering this with families?
Yeah, I mean, we currently still see Italy with the lump sum regime that is very attractive. We see the UK that can be an option for 4 years. But of course, we also see that having a discussion about leaving Switzerland is one thing. If you really then, or if people really carefully think about it, they also realize it's not that easy, and it's not what they want to do. And therefore, it was extremely powerful, kind of the statements of the Federal Council, and also the kind of the written Botschaft from the Federal Council, the ordinance about the initiative and why the Federal Council is against it, and especially also that there is no retrospective taxation if someone would leave Switzerland after the vote, even if the initiative would be accepted. So that now helps a lot, that a lot of people who were very concerned today say, well, they can can live with it. So we have the unlikely case, at least our view, that the initiative will be accepted. And if this unlikely case would happen, then people could still leave Switzerland without being caught by the tax.
Yeah, because it is such a big thing to properly leave a country for tax perspective and give up your home. That's a big move, right?
It sounds easy, but if you really carefully think it through, what do you do with your real estate? I mean, what does it mean? I mean, if you have kids, I mean, it means moving schools or moving to other schools. So, and therefore, I think here the Federal Council did the right thing and made some clear statements which help a lot. But it's still there and it's still harmful.
It's also as a Brit, I find it kind of ironic because we've been dealing a lot with people who are in the UK who find the new rules in the UK and inheritance tax to be kind of the final straw for them, forcing them to leave. But on the other side, if you're looking for somewhere to go for a few years, the UK is still really attractive. So I just think it's interesting. And inheritance tax does seem to be that one thing that people really feel strongly about because they've earned their money and paid tax during their lifetime. In Switzerland, there's wealth tax as well. And so that final kicker of the inheritance tax is really the thing that people really don't like. So what about things like, coming from a common law background, what about things like trusts? Do people use those for succession planning, not just in the context of the initiative, or is that less popular in the Swiss market?
I think a lot of people think about it because they hear about it. They have people around them who might have trusts or foundations, but what we then still see that in the process of kind of thinking it carefully through, a lot kind of dismiss the idea again, and I think that not at least has also to do with giving away control. So if you really kind of hand it over in a discretionary trust, then I mean, especially entrepreneurs struggle then to kind of do the last step. So therefore, we mainly see it if it goes into charity, so charitable foundations or trusts. I think there it's a bit of a different story because you really hand it over and then some good stuff should be done with this money. But to really use it as a succession element there, we see it, but we see that a lot of people working towards it finally move into another direction.
Yeah, interesting. And so then as a last question, what other things are you working on at the moment in the international private client space? So not all of your clients are Swiss living in Switzerland.
I think to mention two things. One is relocation is still a huge topic.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of people moving around. They're luckily Switzerland, especially for the ones not being affected by the inheritance tax, is still very attractive. And I think that has not just to do with taxation, but also with the entire package Switzerland offers. And then the other thing which is there since quite some years is that, let's say, the tax landscape has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And a lot of the old structures that have been fit for purpose 20 or 30 years ago, they are by far no longer fit for purpose. And there we see that people are really kind of rethinking what they need, what would work for the next 20 years. And that often also means kind of melting down a lot of old stuff and kind of getting back to what you really need. And this has also to do with substance, because 20, 30 years ago you did not really need substance, where you had companies, and that changed dramatically, and therefore we see a lot of bigger families who have to decide where do they want to kind of have their structures, where do they want to have their people sitting, and then kind of restructure it in a way that it's kind of accepted by tax authority, but also by bank and other interested parties.
And one last question. Of all of the places you've looked at for your clients, if you were moving, which country would you move to? And you can't say you'd stay in Switzerland.
Yeah, I would almost have to. I would almost have to go to Austria because my wife is from there.
A very sensible answer. Thank you very much, Jürg. It's clear there's a lot going on, and we really appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.